Hi, good afternoon. This is Mr. Waitella. Today is a Wednesday, so I'm back with an update for the school district. And I'm just going to wait 1 second because it looked like it was flipping. Okay. Welcome to Facebook Live. Today is July 15th. And we have an update with some things that our planning committees are going to be starting. So this week the big news was that we got guidance from the Department of Health, and while the guidance or the form sheet from New York State schools was also due to be out, we still haven't seen it yet. There's a place to upload your form in your plan through NewYorkState.gov, but the actual form that they want us to fill out hasn't been put out yet, and today is Wednesday the 15th. That said, we feel that it's going to follow the document from the Department of Health pretty closely. So we're going to be working on developing some plans for how to reopen school safely and what that entails, from transportation to lunches to music and choral groups, as well as bands, as well as then just general instruction. So tonight's a board meeting, and we're going to kind of go over a couple of the points in the Department of Health guidance and what that might look like here in North Tonawanda, so we can start getting some news out to parents, hopefully early August, because we have to have our plan developed, which is going to include a number of scenarios. So if there's open full steam ahead, there's open partial, which would involve kind of a mixture, so we have smaller class sizes and some online learning and participation. And then there's, he's closed, he's not going to open us August 1st. He said he'll make a determination after he reviews our plans, and then it's all virtual. So it's kind of out of our hands, except that we have a lot of say on what's in the plans if we do open. So we'll be looking to do that very shortly. So we start dissecting everything now. We hope we get the form from the state today or tomorrow, because they already have meetings planned on Monday right away to start looking at what it's going to look like in each building. And each building will be slightly different just because of the number of students and the grade levels that are there. But one thing that's in all the documents is social distancing when possible, of course, and wearing the masks and hand sanitizer and washing hands. So a lot of that has to be put into place, so we can do that regularly throughout the school day. So that's one thing. The other thing that we're working on here is an outside person. John Braun is working on a Wall of Fame update, and we're working to get something hopefully in August or September from all the fundraising he's been doing with that. So if you've seen his page, or you've driven by the high school and you see the thermometer out front, it's for our Fine Arts Wall of Fame and our Sports Wall of Fame, and I encourage you to look into it a little bit and donate if you haven't, because it'll be a nice update, and it's a nice way to preserve history in the district, as well as the people who've been nominated on the Wall of Fame already and future inductees to the Wall of Fame. So much like we do our I'm a Lumberjack videos, where we're very proud of everyone and what they're doing in the future, we hope to get back to those once this COVID-19 business is done and add more of those. We're also looking to have something that the community can be very proud of, to come and see the history of the school district, since it's been here since 1801. The other piece is that there was a thought exchange that went out that involved giving you some feedback, giving us some feedback from you on what you felt worked well or didn't work well with the online learning that we sort of got thrown into in March, because we're making a lot of changes to that if we have to go back to that model, and we wanted your input. So we'll be sharing that tonight with the Board of Ed, and then at our committee meetings throughout July and August. And then there'll probably be one next week about reopening. And a big piece of reopening will be parents hopefully telling us their views on it, number one. Number two, transportation is an issue. So they want to know who would be willing to drive their kids or let their kids walk to alleviate some of the crowding on buses. If that's not possible, then we have to look at altered schedules and double and triple runs for the buses. And transportation across New York State is already being taxed, where there's not enough drivers for all the runs that we need already. So we're really doubling or tripling up to begin with. So that'll be a big part of our July and August meetings as well, on what we'll be able to do with transportation. So we'll be asking parents about their thoughts on that as well. And then internet connectivity. So one of the things that we have to have a plan for is there were a number of families that said they didn't have internet access or they didn't have a device. And the state's asking us how we're going to rectify that going forward. So as we go forward, there'll be a questionnaire, there may be even phone calls home, double checking and triple checking. We have a pretty good idea of who has that problem based on our March to June feedback from parents that we got, but there's new kindergartners coming in. We don't know what their connectivity is in their households, and we need to find all that out. So over the next couple of weeks will be a lot of surveys, a lot of meetings, a lot of planning for a plan to the governor to approve or disapprove at the end of July for making a decision his first week in August. So the first week of August really is the 3rd through the 7th. So I'm anticipating, he's done a lot of decisions on Tuesdays, it seems like, that we may hear something August 4th on if schools are going to be open or not in September, or it could be as late as the 7th, but I don't have any reason to believe he wouldn't give us an answer the first week of August like he's saying. So just so I can reiterate again, is that the school districts are being asked to give a 3-level plan. School is normal. How can you keep kids safe and distance, if possible? If you're going to have a reduced portion of students to help with the distancing, how does that work? And then if the governor or the COVID rate goes up to that 10% number that he's using for all these other states, and we're closed again, what's our plan? So we're submitting 3 plans, and we've been in conversation already with the Orleans-Niagara superintendents across this area in this county, in Orleans County, but the next meeting I'll have is with Erie County as well. And we're one region, Erie, Niagara, Orleans, so most of our plans will be very, very similar. So that's what we're looking for. And for reopening, and will drive my children to Spooks. District is doing amazing. So those are the types of things we're going to have to ask everybody to see, because we want to keep everyone safe as possible, and we want to do that not only for your children, but for when they come home. If they're going to see grandma and grandpa, we don't want them to have the virus to get them sick. We want to keep our employees safe, most of all. There's a lot of money being spent on hand sanitizers and cleaning supplies, as well as disinfectants, and that has to include in between bus trips, that has to include in between lunches, and it even has to include in between classes going forward. So when one class leaves, the desks should be getting wiped down either by the student or the teacher. So those are all protocols and part of our plan that we have to put into place. In no way can I do homeschool and I work, but I don't see my kids wearing a mask in class either. So some of the guidance on the masks are that if we can't socially distance in some rooms, they're saying you should give mask breaks, which means they can go to the gym or a larger area and take their mask off and stay socially distant from each other. In nice weather, obviously, September, October, we could take them outside for that type of thing. But kids are kids, right? So they're going to want to play and run around and be near each other. And so there's a lot of training that has to go in that first week of school, and we're looking at some alternatives for how we can do that safely. So distance learning will be part of the plan from what I'm seeing. I don't know, it's optional, or it'll be something that he'll say, take your distance learning plan and implement it at the same time. We'll be directed by the governor on that as well. A lot of things are his call because the state requires seat time and 180 days of attendance for funding. So a lot of that he's got to work out with the federal government and the state government, and don't feel like North Tonawanda is not going to be the only one, because we're all dealing with it across the state, and we will figure it out, and we'll see what we can do to offer that. I've said from the get-go that we have some children in the district who are immune compromised. I even have some staff that might have some immune compromised conditions, and we have to take that into effect. You can't just assume everybody's going to be able to come here like they're supposed to. So we have to take all that into effect. It's going to be a long couple of months coming up right now. So we're going to work on that. Are there going to be special classroom accommodations for kids who are immune compromised or have a respiratory problem? If a student or a teacher doesn't present COVID positive, will the classroom school be required to quarantine for every 2 weeks at a time? So we just asked for more guidance on that, because in the document that came out, they're not saying 14 days, and it's kind of confusing, as if you're in a COVID positive home, if you're showing COVID symptoms but you're testing negative, you could be positive because you have up to 14 days to test positive, and there's really no good answer, sadly. So we asked them to sort of say, you got to give us more guidance. We don't want to be opening and closing every 2 weeks, because we could be open a day basically and close for 2 weeks, and open a day and close for 2 weeks, and that's not going to be possible for people to go back to work, or for us to even instruct kids properly. So we're waiting for guidance on that, but I didn't see 2 weeks. I saw 24 hours, I saw 48 hours, and it all depends on symptoms and positive and test results. So I don't think they really know yet. So we're asking, but we'll figure it out. Tonight's board meeting is open to the public, but it is a policy meeting, so that means there's no public comment section, because they're just working on things. They're not making any votes. They're not doing anything. So we have a couple presentations, and they're going to discuss some policy, and it starts at 6. I would assume it would be done around 7:30, but the next speaking meeting for public would be August 5th. And in the past, when we've had meetings, they were, you could call in with your questions, but nobody was calling in. And for reopening, what about the kids that can't wear a mask all the time due to having asthma? So 2 things I saw on that is the mask, okay, piece, obviously, and then there's those plastic shields pediatricians are suggesting, but there's some issues on the availability of those throughout the state. So, everyone's going to have to really be picky and choosy on that. You're not going to be able to just give it to a kid because they want one. They're going to need one. And some of the conversation has been is that your pediatrician might be able to get it for you as a prescription easier than the school districts to order, because the school districts would be guessing how many they need to order. And then, just for example, Clarence gets 100 of them and needs 5, and I'm looking for 15 and I can't get any because they're all sitting in Clarence because they sold out. So and those really though are size and adjustable, and so there's some things on that, but that's one of the things I read in the guidance this week. I think the middle school and senior high not having separate folders for each class is a big one, because one day you can go and next all of a sudden you are closed and now everything is home. So hopefully we'll be doing a lot more digitally and using Schoology more, especially at the middle school and high school, so there shouldn't be a need for so many different folders. Is the meeting open to the public? I answered. I believe the distance learning is going to be the way to go. It will give kids checks as well. So temperature checks are part of one of the protocols. They're one of the guidance in the document says, that parents are supposed to check before they send them, but we know how that'll go. So we're looking at some of the devices that looks like an actual iPad, that when you walk by it, it scans your temperature, and to see if we could do that and if it would work efficiently with so many kids and lining up in bad weather and getting in the building. But that's one option. We also have the point at the forehead ones that you're not even touching but just near it. And the staff that's working this summer are using those, and they're working very well. So we already have those in each building, but it's a matter then of who's checking. Do we check before they get on the bus? Do we check before they walk in the school? Do we check when they get out of the car? So there's a lot of that to be worked out. I agree, and some families would choose to keep kids home, which would also help with school class distancing. Thank you for all your hard work. Thank you. Okay. So there's a lot to be worked out still. There's a lot of guidance to come. So as the superintendents read it, we came up with, I think, 15 clarification questions, and that was just when we got it Monday to Tuesday. So we keep rereading it, we keep trying to figure it out, we keep getting more guidance on it as well. So I think by the end of the next week we should have all those answered. So homeschooling is different than distance learning, and I'll put this out here now, and I'm sure we'll get a lot of questions on this. So if you homeschool, you're choosing your curriculum and what you want to teach your child at your rate, and you will not get a district diploma because you are choosing to do that through a home curriculum. If there's distance learning, we're going to give you the curriculum, we're going to give you the work, we will grade it, and then it will be consistent with what we know New York State is looking for, because everything we send out will get checked by the state at some point, as far as curriculum and how we're using it, and so then they allow us to give the diploma, much like we did for the graduates this year who needed to finish up. If changing distance, if using, is that, okay. So the distance on busing. So we did present that to the board informally because we didn't know what school would look like. So that's something that could have to happen. We do bus kids more, so a shorter distance than required. So I'm just going to pick a number. I'm not prepared with this in front of me at the moment, but let's say high school students by the state in a small city school district can walk up to 2.5 miles. Okay, I'm just putting it out there. I don't know that's true. North Tonawanda is currently busing, let's say, at 2 miles. So we've taken a half mile off. There are other rules that we've decided, like if you go to Spruce, but you have to cross division Twin City highways, even though it might only be half a mile because you live right on the other side, we're not going to make kids cross that busy intersection, so we bus them. So we have all those rules already in place, and we kind of gave a breakdown to the board informally. And once we come up with our committee meetings and our plan to the state, we'll go back to the board if that's going to change for distance. How is homes? How would, wait a minute. Okay. Will BOCES students be able to drive themselves if they have their own vehicle? That is a BOCES decision. They've asked us not to allow students to drive because of the accidents and the liability and all that stuff when they're supposed to be with us in our school day. I do know that the district superintendent, Clark Godshall, had mentioned that they're looking into that, but that won't be a district decision. That'll be a BOCES decision because it's how do kids get onto their property safely. I think the board would approve it if BOCES approves it, so I don't think there'd be a problem, but we have to wait for BOCES to tell us that. How would homeschooling for incoming kindergarten students work? Well, we're working on that. That's a good question. So obviously we have to get them a device. We have to make sure they have internet, and we would have to provide lessons, meet with their teacher so many times a day, all those types of things, and how we would try to do it. It's not the best option. Nobody here wants that as an option, but it's something that we may be forced into as a state. Okay, the district won't just choose it by itself. How will hands-on classes at BOCES be handled? My daughter is in culinary. Online didn't work so well with that. They're planning on opening BOCES. In our last call, he's going to socially distance everybody. They're getting their masks. They're getting everything ready. They're planning on having kids there in September until the governor doesn't let us. So if they have to go to online learning and you're doing something like welding or you're doing something like culinary or the beautician, those types of things, there's no substitute for doing it hands-on. I agree. So I mean, you can watch all the videos you want, but unless you're practicing, right, you're not going to get there. So can you address UPK? Has thought been given to them and how they will be handled? So UPK is the Carousel Academy. We are working with them. We are telling them what the district's doing. We're asking them if they want to come to any of the trainings we're going to be offering teachers in August. So, but it's ultimately up to them. And we have to see what their requirements are. They actually have a different requirement than school-age children. So it seems like school is school, but it's not. If you're in preschool, they have a few different things and hoops they have to jump through. Interested in homeschooling, how we go about it. Well, I'd start looking online about homeschooling and what you want to do, because there's some homeschool curriculums. There's also parents who do unschooling. There's parents who do it through a church. that type of thing. But the form and what you have to submit as far as your lesson plans is available easily online, and in our educational services office, they can kind of give you some more direction if you call that downstairs. So if you call the 807-3500 number and you hear the prompt for educational services, that's the button you'd want to hit, and they can give you more details. Uh, Difficult, where it's supposed to be. No, middle school and high school report cards are all through the internet, through the eSchool device. So there were not going to be paper ones there. Those sound like smart kids, Lynn, but parents have to overrule, right? I wondered why the teachers did not hold their regular classes at their regular times via Zoom back in March. Is this something that could be explored for upcoming school years, those students who are about to set home? So it says see more, but stay-at-home parents, an option for those who need attendance school. Yeah, so that's going to be more of the model. So that's definitely, I think, what the governor is going to require going forward for distance learning. What happened in March through June was we were all kind of thrown in a tailspin and had never done it before, and it just took us a little bit longer to get organized probably than we should have, but it seemed to work at the end. But you're right, so if we hold regular scheduled classes and school's going to start at 7:45, we heard a lot of complaints and students saying, I'm not going to get up until noon. So they're missing or they're absent for their first 3 classes. So parents and students are going to have the conversation that no school doesn't mean sleep in late. That'll be one of the problems. Any word on kindergarten screening? So it's on our radar, but it's not anything we can do now. And what we think we might do is we'll have to do it during the school day when they're here, and see what we can do. There is an option still that we may get our plan approved, and the governor's going to say you can move forward after August 7th, and we could do things the last 3 weeks of August as a screening. So we're kind of waiting for that, because right now, until the governor says the first week of August I'll make a decision if schools can open or not, we're still technically closed under the governor's directive, not because of summer vacation. So you got to wait a little bit. I can't be allowing students into the building yet that way. Will devices be supplied for the ones being homeschooled? So if you are homeschooled, again, that's your choice, your decision, you're on your own. You can request if there's extra textbooks and things like that, and I know the districts have helped in that way. But we will be doing devices for distance learning, not homeschooling. So there are kids who are coming and doing our curriculum specifically. Here's a huge difference between crisis learning in March and June and distance learning. I'm confident the teachers have used this. Yes, they are working very hard. All right. So we'll be back next week. Now next week will be July still, right? So we're going to be July. My calendar's all screwed up. Okay, July 22nd. There might be a lot more information July 22nd, but by July 29th, we should be having a draft of our plan to submit and what's going to look like and what we're going to have to do. So I'll use this format. I'll be doing a Global Connect call as well, because it may alter a few things, and also the thought exchange that we're planning to send out will be out by then, and we'll need some feedback from parents specifically. So we may even have the clerical and the principals or any staff that's available really start calling families about transportation and their thoughts on that, if they can provide their own transportation or not, because that's going to be a huge one for opening for all districts. So please watch and stay tuned. I wish I could give you all the answers today, but if I did, I'd be back next week saying sorry, I lied or I was wrong, because we're still figuring it out. So everyone's doing a little bit different too. I want to specify that. So, we've got districts in this county that are Wilson, Barker, Roy Hart that, have a graduating class of 25 to 50 kids, not close to 300. So there's differences that can happen in those smaller districts. But Niagara Falls, Lockport, North Tonawanda, the three city school districts in Niagara County are really going to try to work together to provide a program that fits for city schools with busing as well as distance learning and helping people get the internet because we have that huge population to deal with. Not that the rural counties don't have their same connectivity issues, but it's at a smaller base. And we need to work with what we can do. So thank you, everybody. Please share this video so people know we're working on it. You can always call the office with any questions, and we'll be back next week. All right. So take care.